So I mentioned at the beginning of Mass, today we celebrate Jesus ascending into heaven, which is a whole nother place in terms of time and space than what we're familiar with. It's another world, literally another world, to which Jesus has gone. And we're under a lot of pressure today to disbelieve that that world exists, whether it be the heavens, the purgatory, the hell, whatever it might be. We don't see it. We don't see it, and therefore are prone to deny that it's there. And of course, whatever else the church continues to affirm, it is that heaven does exist, and that Jesus, when he goes there, does not go to the heavens in such a way that he just leaves us behind totally, and he goes off into this nice, quiet place of heaven and has no more to do with us down here while we're trudging through life and suffering and experiencing all kinds of difficulties and challenges. And he's just off in some glorious heaven, maybe with the TV clicker on a lazy boy, taking it easy. And that's not what we have here in the ascension of Jesus. Because the church also affirms that that world, the heavens, is very closely related to our own. And that in fact, Jesus is reigning and ruling over this world from there. His bodily detail has been taken away from us in the ascension so that his divine presence can become present to the entire cosmos in all its parts and places. As long as Jesus was here among us, like you and I are, he's standing here, which means he can't be over there. He can't be over there, he can't be over there. No, he's here in his body. But by ascending, he removes the details of his bodily life from us so as to become present to all of us through the entire universe by his divinity. And that's what happens in the ascension. It's kind of like, if you think of where we are right now within reality, we're on the outer periphery of a wheel. And at the center of the wheel is the alpha point for everything that exists. Jesus has ascended to that alpha point, and from there has access to everything on the periphery by way of, if you think of the spokes going out. He's become present to the entire order of creation from his seat at the alpha point where it all began in the beginning, which is from the Father. And there is perhaps nowhere, well, there really isn't anywhere in the cosmos where the relationship between that other world, the heavens, and this world becomes most powerfully evident than right here in this Eucharist, when Jesus, once again, coming from the alpha point for the entire order of creation at its core, comes out to the periphery where we live on our altar and feeds us and helps us also to join him and stay with him and stay the journey in the course of our faith to this other world where he is now. He wants us to be with him so that where he is, we also may be. Now, there are other ways to also show that that other world, first of all, exists, but that it also is very intimately related to our world here and the world you and I live in. You know, Our Lady has appeared to a number of young children in the last couple of centuries. She appeared, for example, to Saint Bernadette Soubirous. And that was in France. And Saint Bernadette, if you read her account of Mary appearing to her. Now, Mary is coming to Bernadette in our realm of creation from the heavens. So Mary's coming from another realm to our realm and visiting this little girl, Bernadette. And Mary is of such substance that Bernadette, as she describes her vision, kept trying to reach for her rosary, but was restrained from doing so by just Mary's presence. Mary's going to lead the prayer. And she said, as soon as Mary reached for her rosary, Bernadette could reach for hers, and not before. That's pretty powerful. That's a lot of power. I mean, it's the kind of power that makes the demons shudder at the presence of the Blessed Mother, who, by the way, appears at every exorcism in the church that takes place. The exorcist knows it's about to be over when Mary appears. They absolutely fear this woman. She is of such substance. Or let's take, for example, she appeared to 3 shepherd children at Fatima over a period of 6 months. The last of those visions, as you may know if you've ever heard of Fatima, she appeared to a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 10-year-old at this small little Portuguese village in Portugal called Fatima. And the last of these apparitions, she said, I will perform a miracle so that even unbelieving atheist agnostics will see it and they will believe that I am appearing to you, because everyone was saying these little kids are having these fantasies and they're just making all this stuff up. They like a lot of attention and all this stuff. They get the adults running around. And all this stuff. Well, she promised a miracle. And she gave it on October 13th, 1917. The whole day before, there was torrential rains coming down on Fatima, just torrents of rain. And by the time everyone got out to the Cova, it's still running, it's just raining, cats and dogs. Mud everywhere, puddles everywhere, everyone's wet. They have all these umbrellas out. 70,000 people gathered, more than half of them not even believing there is a God, because they heard that there would be this miracle. When Mary appeared, Lucia, the 10-year-old seer, she reported that Mary at one point in this last apparition took her hand, she pointed at our sun in our world. Now remember, Mary is coming from the other side. She's coming from the heavens. She takes her hand, she points to our sun, and a ray of light comes from her hand to our sun, and her hand makes the sun dance in our world. Again, that's a lot of power. And 70,000 people see the sun start dancing. It's going in this, and it's turning all these colors, green, orange, blue, purple, yellow, all this thing for 10 minutes. Even people that didn't believe God existed saw this and reported it in the papers the next day. And you might say, well, it was all in their heads. But then you have this other phenomena, which was at one point the sun started to come toward the people, and everyone panicked. They thought it was the end of the world. The sun is going to crash into the earth, because it was coming closer and closer and rushing toward them. And finally it stopped and went back into its proper orbit. And when that was done, the entire area and all the clothes of everyone there was completely dry, as though it hadn't rained a drop of rain just an hour before. See, those are effects in real time within our world coming from the other side. And there's a lot of power on the other side, from the heavens, from where Jesus governs us. You might say, well, boy, he could sure be doing a better job. What a mess this world is. But see, the mess isn't his. That's our mess. We're making a mess of things. If there's anything he's attempting to do, and very effectively I might add, we haven't destroyed ourselves yet. Not even in the Cold War between Russia and the United States. We came very close to totally incinerating the whole world, but we didn't. And we're going to take credit for that? I don't think so. He's governing us. He is governing us from the heavens and restraining our impulse to redesign everything in this world according to our purposes. And we're trying to force people to believe that the heavens don't exist. But they do exist. Right now, as I'm speaking to you in the Myanmar province of China, Chinese government has set up re-education camps for Muslims and Catholics. And they're being re-educated to sign papers that the only God they will acknowledge is the state of China. And the way they're doing it is by torture, depriving them of sleep, of food, and wearing them down mentally and physically to the point where finally they will sign. There is no God, there is no heaven, there's no other realm. The state of China is the highest authority for me, and I'll sign. Finally, that's what we call re-education. We aren't facing that right now, but we're under pressure. We are under pressure. On Monday of this last week, the Gallup poll came out that said for the first time in the history of the United States, men and women professing to believe that there is a God or who self-identify with a religion that worships God has fallen under 50%. Those who actually believe there is a God or profess or practice some religion that would worship that God, whether it be Christian, Muslim, or Jewish, has fallen to 47% in the United States now. The last time they did this was 20 years ago, and it was over 70%. In just 20 years, we've fallen beneath where the majority of the country now believes there is no God and there is no religion. It's just a figment of our imagination. We're under pressure, brothers and sisters, to believe there is no God. Now, there are other ways we can also speak to how the heavens are closely related to our world. And I'll share with you a story of a priest friend of mine, and I'll tell you, it's a true story. This priest friend of mine, when he was a seminarian, he went to St. Mary's in Emmitsburg, Maryland. And it came to Thanksgiving, and of course out that way, at least, not so much here, but out that way, it snows at Thanksgiving, and there was this snowstorm. And this priest friend of mine, now at the time a seminarian, invited a Filipino seminarian to come with him home to his home because the Philippines were so far away, this particular seminarian couldn't go home, and he thought, why stay here alone? Come with me. So they got in the car, and they're on the way to his home, and it's snowing, it's blizzard, and they run across a woman who's outside of her car trying to change her tire in this blizzard with these children inside the car. And they said, why don't we stop and try and help them change her tire? So they did. And they told her, please get inside, stay warm in the car. While the two of them were working on the tire, a 16-wheeler jackknifed and smashed into them, instantly killing the Filipino seminarian. The mother and the children were okay. It bashed up the car, but they had the buffer of the car to keep them from any damage. But my priest friend, suffered multiple injuries in his body, and especially in his face, got pushed in. And that night, the sun had gone down by this point. By the time he got to the hospital, the first of 16 surgeries that he had to undergo was that of removing his two eyes, because they had been crushed by this 16-wheeler bearing down on them, and his face had been pushed in. So the surgeon that night, removed his two eyes. He was an atheist, a non-believer, the doctor, and he came in the next morning to check on the dressing for the eyes. And he started to remove the dressing, and when he removed the dressing, two eyes were looking at him. And the doctor got angry with this friend of mine and said, "What are you doing? Are you playing games with me? What, did you put these glass eyes in your sockets to just kid with me and play with me?" He was getting angry with him. And he said, my friend just looked at him, he said, "Doctor, I see you." God gave him a second set of eyes out of nothing. I mean, there again, it's like this other realm is not unrelated to the one we live in. Every time I look and visit with this priest friend of mine, I look into his eyes. Not only should he be dead, but how many of us get a second pair of eyes? That's amazing. It's just amazing. And it indicates to us that that other realm is very powerful. And you know, we get some of this power in this world for our self-governance. Adolf Hitler had some of this power. All that power belongs to Christ, all of it. And Hitler took the power and sought to use it to put himself at the center of all of history, as well as the German people, which meant the slaughter of millions of other ethnicities. Adolf Hitler will be held to account by Jesus Christ himself for the abuse of his power when Jesus comes again. He will be held to an account. But the other thing to recognize here is the only way Hitler could have been effective in resolving all of human history around himself was to unseat Jesus at the alpha point of all history. And he doesn't have the power to do that. Unfortunately, when we play God, people die. And that's what's happening today. We have governments forcing us to believe things that are not true. That a man can marry a man, a woman can marry a woman, that a woman can be a man, or a man can be a woman. You can't do that. I mean, we're just rearranging chairs on the deck of the Titanic. There's one God, designer and maker of the universe. It's Jesus Christ. And he's not buying it. He's just not buying it, brothers and sisters. And he never will. And we're asked to believe that as Catholics. And in fact, we do believe this as Catholics, that this is true. And this is also, and with this I will conclude, this is a source of our hope, by the way, because Jesus ascended into the heavens from our realm, it shot a hole right through time and history so that sin, no matter how bad or heinous or terrible, can never define our life again if we're willing to repent for it and ask his forgiveness. Why? Because sin can't resolve history so that it becomes attached to us in such a way that it defines us. There's no sin that has to define us, ever. Not as long as Jesus shot a hole through all of history so that Mary Magdalene, yeah, she was a prostitute, but guess what? She became a saint. There was nothing binding her to remain a prostitute, no matter what the scribes and Pharisees said. They said, "You're just going to be a prostitute the rest of your life. Don't touch us." Jesus had a better idea. "No, I'm going to free you, Mary. You don't have to be a prostitute anymore. That's the hope, brothers and sisters. We're not bound by the awful things we do when we turn to him and ask his forgiveness and repent. We're set free. And there is another moment when from the heavens the power comes into this world in the form of forgiveness and mercy. So, brothers and sisters, we live with a God who is merciful, and thank God he's God and not us. Maybe we doubt his power because he won't let us take his power and use it like we want to. Like, you know what, I think I could do a better job than you, Jesus. I don't think so. When we become God, people die. He's doing pretty good trying to restrain us and still respect our freedom. And Jesus Christ is Lord, not us. He's King, not us. And he's ruling the universe, not us. And thank God for that, because that's our hope, brothers and sisters. So let's welcome him today as we come to this altar and receive him into our lives, recognizing even our personal history is broken open by this ascension and cannot be resolved by any evil done to us or by us, because of the mercy of Jesus, who has ascended into heaven, forever breaking a hole through all of history, including our own.